Wait a minute. Groovy. And cut!
Oh, hi there. My name is Prostetnik Vogon Jeffs, and in this video I'm going to be talking about The Thing. No, not the 2011 prequel debacle, and no, not 1951's The Thing from Another World. In this video, we're taking a look at the 1982 science fiction horror film directed by John Carpenter, starring Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, and Keith David, along with a handful of other well-cast actors. The Thing tells the story of a group of researchers in Antarctica who encounter an alien life form that imitates its victims. It's based on the 1938 novella Who Goes There by John W. Campbell. And like most of John Carpenter's movies, it ain't perfect.
No, wait a minute.
But it's great and fun as hell to watch. Let's get into it. Man, it's crazy how much hate this movie got when it was released. The studio made money off of it, but it wasn't a box office success, most likely due to the near-unanimous negativity from critics. Ironically, many reviewers felt that the film was too cold. Other common complaints were that it was too cynical and nihilistic, and offered only surface-level characterizations. But things changed quite a bit in 40-plus years. Contemporary reviews for The Thing bestow almost universal praise. Maybe it's because we're all a bit more cynical and nihilistic. Maybe it's because we finally appreciate its horrific brilliance. Or maybe it's the spider head. Alright. After a quick pre-title shot of an alien spaceship heading towards Earth, we open on Antarctica. It's hard to say. We open on Antarctica. We open on Antarctica in 1982. A helicopter is in pursuit of a dog as a rifle-bearing passenger unsuccessfully tries to shoot it. They approach and land at United States National Science Institute Station 4, where the passenger accidentally, and somewhat hilariously, drops a grenade, blowing up the helicopter and himself. The Americans, having exited their facility to witness the commotion, are greeted by the fleeing dog, followed soon after by an incomprehensible and armed pilot. Clearly on a mission, the pilot shoots and inadvertently pegs one of the men, George, in the leg and continues pursuing the dog. Gary, the station commander, retaliates and shoots the intruder right in the face. The crew can't get a hold of anyone by radio to report the incident, and some of the men speculate on why two Norwegians from a neighboring facility had arrived in such a manner. Dr. Copper wants to visit their base, and leaves with Kurt Russell's helicopter pilot, R.J. MacReady, despite some sketchy flying conditions. As the rescued canine roams the American facility, MacReady and Copper arrive at the Norwegian base. It's been destroyed, nearly burnt to the ground. The two men find a dead body and Copper gathers some documents before MacReady stumbles upon a large chunk of excavated ice. And a few moments later, amidst a pile of charred remains, they find a strange burnt corpse worthy of further investigation. MacReady and Copper return to their facility where the entire crew gawks at the malformed abomination they brought back with them. Wilford Brimley's Blair, the resident biologist, performs an autopsy on the strange remains, but finds that the internals are all normal. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew tries to relax, but George is aggravated by the rescued dog and asks Clark to put him with the other dogs in the kennel. Within moments of being left to themselves, the rescued dog transforms into a grotesque monster, angering and frightening the other dogs. The monster attacks and absorbs them. Clark, hearing the dogs in distress, returns to check on them, and is almost set upon by the monster. MacReady also hears the disturbance and alerts the rest of the crew. After shooting at the monster, with minimal results, Keith David's Childs steps in and lights it up with a flamethrower. F***ing boss. After another grotesque autopsy, Blair determines that the creature was trying to replicate and imitate the dogs. He takes blood samples from the remaining dogs, and begins to get suspicious of Clark's prolonged exposure to the rescued dog/creature thing. After reviewing the documents and videos salvaged from the Norwegian base, the crew determines the location of an excavation site which contains a large alien spaceship. And nearby, they discover a smaller excavation site, roughly the size of the block of ice they found at the Norwegian base. Back at the American facility, the crew discuss the downed spaceship and the creature, and Blair runs a computer simulation that forecasts a not-so-pleasant future for mankind if it were to escape. So they stash the autopsied corpses in a supply closet they can lock up for safe measure. But Fuchs, Blair's assistant, has troubling information. He's taken one of Blair's notebooks, which speculates that the corpses aren't truly dead.
There is still cellular activity in these burned remains. They're not dead yet.
And he's right, because as Fuchs and MacReady discuss the revelation, George is assimilated by the thing. The crew chase him down outside and set him ablaze. The crew then decides to burn the rest of the corpses.
We gotta burn the rest of them.
Every bit of the thing needs to be destroyed. But while they're busy with that, Blair ducks away to sabotage the vehicles, kill the remaining dogs, and destroy the communications equipment. Thinking he's lost his mind, MacReady and crew lock him up in the tool shed. Doc Copper suggests testing everyone's blood against their uncontaminated stores. But upon entering the medical bay, they discover they've all been destroyed. Everyone loses their cool and starts throwing accusations, while Windows sneaks out of the room and makes a run for the gun cabinet. MacReady steps in and takes control of the situation, and accepts leadership of the crew after Gary cracks. MacReady then separates the three most suspicious men, Doc, Gary, and Clark, from the rest of the team.
We're gonna find out who's who.
And has them tied up and drugged. Meanwhile, Fuchs, becoming more and more paranoid, goes missing. MacReady, Windows, and Knowles go outside to search for him and find his burnt corpse. MacReady suggests that he may have ended himself to prevent the thing from getting him. MacReady then notices that the light in his shack is on, and they go up to investigate. The crew begin to barricade the doors and windows of the facility. Norris experiences stomach pains as Knowles returns from MacReady's shack. He found some of MacReady's torn clothing and ran back to the facility without him, suspecting that he has been taken over by the thing. While the crew debates on whether or not to let him back in, MacReady breaks into the facility through a window and holds everyone back with a bundle of dynamite. In the midst of the confrontation, Norris collapses. The crew bring him to a table and Doc attempts to defibrillate him. Defibrillate him. But Norris's chest breaks open into a gnarly maw and bites Doc's arms off. MacReady shoots Norris with the flamethrower and takes him out, and then incinerates Norris's head, which had sprouted spider-like legs while trying to escape. MacReady holds the rest of the crew hostage and forces them to tie each other up. Childs refuses, and Clark tries to attack MacReady with a scalpel. But MacReady's too quick. He shoots Clark in the head and everyone falls in line. MacReady believes that every part of the thing acts and defends itself independently, even when separated from the whole. He thinks he can test everyone by touching samples of their blood with a heated wire. Theoretically, the blood should react to protect itself. While performing the test, Palmer's blood reacts and he transforms in front of everyone. The thing breaks free and bites Windows on the head, ragdolling him around the room. MacReady torches both of them before finishing off the test for the remaining crew members. They all seem fine. So MacReady, Gary, and Knowles go out to test Blair, leaving Childs behind to guard the facility. But Blair is gone. The three men find a tunnel beneath the shed that leads to a makeshift workshop where Blair has been building a spaceship out of vehicle parts. And soon after, the generator goes out. MacReady and company know they aren't going to make it, but they can't let the thing survive. They destroy the spaceship and head back. Childs is nowhere to be found, and the facility's power generator is
Tom, any way we can fix it? It's gone, MacReady.
MacReady, Gary, and Knowles begin planting explosives. Gary is confronted and assimilated by Blair, and while MacReady preps the detonator, Knowles hears some noises and wanders off, never to be seen again. MacReady investigates but is soon attacked by the thing. He throws a stick of dynamite at the thing, which explodes and sets off the other explosives in the process. With the facility destroyed, MacReady wanders into what little shelter remains and sits down with a bottle of whiskey. Out of nowhere, Childs returns. He claims to have seen Blair and pursued him, getting lost in the storm. Both men sit in the shelter, exhausted and freezing, yet still suspicious of one another. MacReady shares his bottle of whiskey with Childs. Cut to black. The end. I love John Carpenter movies. I think they're great. Halloween, Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China, They Live. Some are more campy than others, but I've enjoyed almost all of his movies. The Thing is no exception. I think it's a great movie. But that doesn't mean it's a perfect movie.
It's a crock of
There are some nitpicky issues, like the countless physical continuity mistakes and some questionable audio mixing, but I have no issue dismissing these as fairly inconsequential. They just don't affect my enjoyment of the movie. That being said, there is one thing that bothers me about The Thing. One thing that I hadn't noticed after half a dozen viewings, but on my last watch, it hit me. And it's kind of ruined the ending for me a bit.
What? I don't know, it's probably nothing.
Not enough to destroy the movie for me, but enough to raise an eyebrow. Enough to get a bit tainted by the experience. When people talk about the ending of The Thing, they're usually talking about the tense and depressing interaction between MacReady and Childs. Is one of them the Thing? What happens to them? There's still a lingering suspicion between the two men, and it goes unresolved. I used to love this ending, I still do to a certain extent, but here's my issue. MacReady's rationale is that the Thing cannot be allowed to freeze.
Whether we make it or not, we can't let the thing freeze again.
It wants to freeze.
It's got no way out of here. It just wants to go to sleep in the cold until the rescue team finds it.
But MacReady's solution is just mind-numbingly stupid.
We gotta bring this whole place right down into the ice.
They torch the facility, which in the Antarctic is a very short-term solution, and they doom themselves in the process. Sure, they've already admitted they're fucked, so it's a Hail Mary. But we know that burning the Thing doesn't work unless every bit of it is destroyed. The malformed corpse that they brought back from the Norwegian base, it was burned, but it still had cellular activity. It was still alive, and you know what? Never mind, it doesn't matter. I've never looked at John Carpenter as the greatest filmmaker, but he's good, and he's a great storyteller. On top of that, the practical effects in The Thing give modern horror movies a run for their money. Almost all of the effects in this movie hold up, and while a Carpenter movie doesn't feel like a Carpenter movie without its self-scored synthesizers, the Ennio Morricone soundtrack is an excellent substitute. Ennio Morricone doing his best John Carpenter? Beautiful. I think it's a remarkable achievement to be over 40 years old and still seem fresh. It just goes to show how ahead of its time this movie really was. Yeah, sure, other movies have dealt with the who can you trust trope.
Nobody trusts anybody now.
Movies that play with suspicion and paranoia aren't anything new, but the way that Carpenter combines these elements within the horror genre, setting the film in the desolate wastes of the Antarctic, is still a novel treat. And other than the almost absurd amount of continuity errors, the world of The Thing is set up convincingly. The confined location and claustrophobic sets are well constructed and used perfectly. Carpenter does a great job of using the environment to heighten tension and support the plot. Another thing Carpenter does well is define his characters. True, not every character in the movie feels completely fleshed out. Some supporting characters are clearly just cannon fodder.
This is pure nonsense.
But the script and direction know how to build character with economy. Whether it's Clark's reactions to his dogs being attacked, or Knowles on his roller skates, each of the main characters is developed through visual cues as opposed to clunky exposition. One of my favorite character moments happens right at the beginning of the movie. MacReady is playing chess against a computer. He thinks he's doing well, and then the computer puts him in checkmate. His response? He calmly dumps his whiskey into the computer and calls it a cheating bitch. It shows he's intelligent, but not a genius. And he's got a temper, but doesn't lose control. It's an excellent mirror to his position at the end of the movie when he's trying to outsmart the Thing. And Carpenter is superbly competent when it comes to plot development. Each scene builds on the last, and the threats to the crew grow steadily throughout the movie. The imposition of the Thing gets stronger with each revelation.
So how do we know who's human?
The level-headed problem-solving of the crew devolves consistently. Paranoia and suspicion increases.
Trust's a tough thing to come by these days.
It's an extremely well-crafted story that keeps you hooked from start to finish. This is helped, in part, because there are really two main antagonists in The Thing. The first and most obvious being the Thing itself, the alien entity. But I would argue that the entire cast is an antagonist to a certain degree. Whether it's their suspicion of each other or their deteriorating mental states, each character at some point proves to be an enemy of the group.
What can we do? What can we do?
The Thing, while still a formidable foe, isn't the greatest threat of the movie. It's the paranoia that it instills in each remaining human. As for story pacing and length, I don't have much to say here. I think there were scenes that could have been a bit more economical, a few strategic cuts here and there that wouldn't have hurt the story, and could have tightened things up. But overall, I think the pacing is fine, and Carpenter does a great job of building tension throughout the film. but a cathartic resolution we do not get, at least not in any traditional sense.
Great.
We're left with the cinematic equivalent of raging blue balls. Did MacReady kill the thing? Is Childs infested with the alien entity?
Where were you, Charles?
Is MacReady? What happens after we cut to black? The questions are purposefully unanswered, and some viewers might hate how the movie concludes. Personally, I love when a film leaves you with thoughtful ruminations. I mean, goddamn, it's a great movie. It honestly puts most modern horror flicks to shame. It knows how to be gory without taking away from the story. It knows how to use characters effectively within the genre. It has a compelling plot. Honestly, what more can you ask for in a horror movie? Or in any kind of movie for that matter? That's all I've got for this one. This is one of those movies I could talk about for hours. I'm still blown away by how reviewers didn't take to this when it first came out. It was ahead of its time. I mean, did you know that the performance of this movie cost John Carpenter a directing job on Firestarter? We could have had a John Carpenter, Stephen King Firestarter movie. That would have been hot shit. The lunatics at Universal even bought Carpenter out of his contract because of how bad this movie was received. F***ing incredible. What a bunch of maroons. Anyway, The Thing is a box office bomb that is absolutely worth watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.